It's time. It's time for someone to step forward.
Hello everyone, welcome to Snow Goose News Station. My name is Janie and I will be your host today. For today's show, we are pleased to have Michael Lee, the BC Liberal Party leadership candidate and the MLA of Vancouver-Langara, here to share with us his agenda. Before we start this interview, Mr. Lee, can you please introduce yourself to us?
I'm Michael Lee. I'm the current MLA for Vancouver-Langara. I was first elected in 2017, re-elected in 2020. I'm born and raised in Vancouver. My parents came from Hong Kong, 1953 and 1962. I was a lawyer for 20 years, working with the resource companies and technology companies all over this province. And I've had a long history in the community with children and youth organizations and immigrant and social service organizations as well.
So if you're elected for the leadership of the BC Liberals, what would be the most important subject for you?
Well, the BC Liberal Party needs an important period of time here to rebuild our party. We have to restore trust with British Columbians because we've lost trust with so many over the last number of years. I'm one of 5 MLAs in Vancouver, Burnaby, Surrey, and Richmond out of 28 ridings. And I know that in order to regain our ground and to be re-elected as government, we have to strengthen our presence, certainly in the Lower Mainland. And that's what I intend to do. I'm wanting to lead the rebuild of this party around core values of accountability, compassion, community, integrity, and inclusivity. Our party can be a more modernized party, one that's more diverse and inclusive and more balanced.
Among the candidates, you and Kevin Falcon are considered as the front runners. What are the advantages you have over him?
Well, I will be that new face of leadership for our party and our province. It's time. It's time for someone to step forward to rebuild our party as I intend to do. And I want to bring so many voices to the table and to be part of our movement, to have a more fiscally responsible and accountable province and to restore trust with our government in terms of how we can deal with our issues around healthcare and education, how we can compete for trade and investment dollars here in this province. I will have a much more broader and diverse way to encourage people, communities, to be involved with our party again, and again to step forward in a new and modern way.
So you talked about the communities. The increasing influx of immigrants into British Columbia has also caused conflicts among many ethnic groups, and sometimes even hate crimes do happen. Have you ever experienced such cases? And what do you want to say to the Chinese out there that are dealing with these issues?
We are fortunate to be able to live here in Canada, in our country, here in our province, in British Columbia, in our cities, in the Lower Mainland of Vancouver and elsewhere. I know that growing up here in Vancouver, I've certainly encountered incidents of racism when I was a young child, a young student going to school in Vancouver. I know that many others over the last number of years, in particular through the pandemic, feel unsafe in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and that's wrong. We have to do more to address the rise of anti-Asian sentiment and hate incidents in our communities. And recently I've been involved with some of the other organizations that have been working on increasing the ability to report on hate crimes and incidents of racism in our community. That is something that we need to do more of to ensure that we can have a more balanced and inclusive and harmonious community. When I was in university, worked on issues like head tax redress and know that this country has had a history of racism for various peoples, including against Indigenous peoples as well, of course. So we know that there is a lot of healing to be done, but we also need to move forward and find better ways to work together. And I know that in British Columbia, we can find that right balance.
If you're elected for leadership of the BC Liberals or even the Premier, how would you reach out to the Chinese community in specific?
Well, for those that know me, they know that I have a long history with the Chinese-Canadian community here in British Columbia. I started working with youth at risk in 1984, which is about 37 years ago, as a university student. And that was working with young people to have youth activity programs. And I went into youth leadership in a very big way, organizing youth conferences back in the mid-1980s, including in the Chinese-Canadian community. I worked on head tax redress, as I mentioned earlier. issues relating to how do we continue to encourage and support new Canadians coming to our country with organizations like Success, the Immigrant and Social Service Organization. I was on their board for 7 years. These are just examples of ways that we all are involved in our community. I've had a long history of that, and I know that in working across our community with members of those Canadians who are Taiwanese, those from mainland China, those who are from Hong Kong, like my parents were, those who are longer standing Canadians of Chinese descent over so many generations, that there's many ways that we can collaborate and come together. But I do think that people do recognize that with my ethno-cultural background, that I have a shared life experience with so many others in the Chinese-Canadian community, that I understand the importance of culture and language. When my wife ensured that my 3 children went to Saturday morning Chinese language school, but also that we have culturally appropriate care for our elderly, our parents and grandparents living at home or going into seniors care, that we have more opportunities to support organizations that build seniors care and assisted living facilities that are culturally appropriate, as I have done before with Success. These are the kinds of things that I bring a different understanding of, and I know that in all of my work, including as an MLA for the last 4.5 years, that I continue to build many bridges and connection points to bring people together across our community to build a better province.
And many were saying that the name Michael Lee is well known within Greater Vancouver, but not very familiar in the northern and interior regions. However, to be elected, you do need province-wide support. How would you answer to that?
Well, this is the second time I've run for leadership of the party. Last time I came very close to winning the leadership. I had the most number of votes voting for me across all 4 rounds of voting that I was in on. But it is a point system, as you say, in terms of the importance of communities outside the Lower Mainland. I was very strong in the Lower Mainland, as I continue to be, but also in terms of the rest of the province. I have a good understanding of those communities which are particularly resource dependent. I have spent 20 years of my professional career working with mining, forestry, energy companies all over this province. I understand the importance of our resource economy in terms of continuing to lower our carbon footprint, but find and improve upon our resource development and process, because we have amongst the highest environmental and safety standards of the world. We should be very proud of the BC brand of mineral and forestry products, for example, energy production that we have with our hydroelectric dam system. We have a real strength here, and we should be building off of that for the future. And so I understand that, and I think that with my work, even after the last leadership race in 2017, as the chair of the caucus committee, I traveled around the province to work with my MLA colleagues in the BC Liberal caucus, fighting to ensure that we maintain our current first-past-the-post voting system that was in the electoral reform referendum. And that was an important win. It was over 60% of British Columbians voting to keep that system, and I was someone who co-led that effort. These are the ways that I've been present in our province, and I know that with this leadership race over the last 15 months, between the time of the election and the time we select the leader, the ultimately 15 months, it's already been 12 now as it is. It's been a long run for sure, and I've traveled over 16,000 kilometers touring around the province with my wife Christina in July, August, and October. Again, reconnecting with so many people across our province in backyards, in cafes, and restaurants, in small group settings and large group settings, to really again hear the voice of British Columbians as we reshape and rebuild the BC Liberal Party.
Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Lee. We are very pleased to have you.